an unstable leader, and I think that we have to be willing to take any action necessary in order to protect the world, but those actions aren't necessary at the moment because it doesn't pose enough of a threat.
Okay, switching gears. There's a lot of social issues here in the United States. We can rattle them off, and domestic issues that people get all excited about, whether they are immigration, whether they are abortion, whether the guns issue, burning the flag. These are all part and parcel of what we call cultural wars. We've seen the cultural wars now on television as people get excited in audiences and go wild and get whipped up. So, starting with the independents, what is it about these issues that you think needs to be addressed more correctly by our leadership on all sides of the political spectrum in a more rational way? What could bring us down to a discourse that makes more sense and divides people less than polarizes them? Pick any of these issues you want to talk about. Just go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say and what you think the candidates' positions might be on settling these differences.
As much as I'm a fan of bigger government in terms of social things, I do believe that the federal government has sometimes overstepped its boundaries and taken some power away from the states. I feel like if states had more power, they'd be able to regulate better their types of lifestyles, whether it be abortion, whether it be pro-choice, pro-life. These types of issues are regional enough in the sense that states can handle these issues. As you see, Connecticut just passed law saying that gay people could get married because that works for them. And I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. What I'm saying is they know what's best for their constituents because they're at that level. They're at the grassroots level, understanding day-to-day operations. When people in Washington, well, in theory, it sounds good. Well, something here is going to be completely different than it is in South Central.
I feel sometimes that one of the policies of this previous administration, the stem cell research issue, which was vetoed, should be relooked at by whoever wins. Stem cell research could potentially save millions of lives if you put government and federal funds into it. Diseases such as Parkinson's or even diabetes we could find cures or ways to treat these illnesses. So I think that part of the faith-based initiative of President Bush is just kind of unrealistic, and I think it should definitely be relooked at.
I think that whoever comes into office is going to have to deal with these, obviously. The social issues are just that. They're social issues that everyone has an opinion about. When we say abortion, and we all have an opinion one way or another on it, or can think of what someone's going to say. We say something about universal health care, and there's an opinion immediately, or illegal immigration, something immediately pops to mind. It's the possibility that perhaps we as a country need to encourage public discourse. The actual reality that we should actually talk about these issues in amongst ourselves, and not just avoid them like there's some dangerous disease that we can't talk about. It was interesting that when President Obama, or Senator Obama, accepted the nomination in Denver, he touched on these issues, actually in his speech, which, as someone who follows politics, I was scared to death. Why are you talking about abortion when you don't have to? But what he said was that we're going to differ on them, but we know we can do one thing, we need to address it. All these issues we're going to differ on, but if we're going to actually move forward as a country, we have to talk about them, which goes back to the idea of working bipartisanship. If there's problems that we all have, and we have different opinions on them, we have to work on them right away. Because social issues are going to always be there. We have to solve them now.
I think the most important thing is that realizing, as Jake said, there's big social issues, we have to take care of them. The national government doesn't necessarily have to take care of them. These are, initially when our country was founded, moral issues were dealt with by the states. I think that's where it should be left at. We should take, if anything can't be done by states, then maybe we'll look at the national government taking it. But things like, in dealing with abortion regulation or gay marriage or, education or, all these numerous other things that people have, they're passionate about, or healthcare, all that sort of stuff. Why does the government have to have a hand in it? We've got 50 different states. Each of them can do it their own way, its own little, experiment. You can get to see, okay, if Wisconsin does this right, and Idaho is failing horribly, why doesn't Idaho look at what Wisconsin is doing and start changing it? Rather than having one big national plan that everybody fails or everybody succeeds right at once, we can try it out in different states, and from there determine if it's something that we'd want to implement in other states.
Yeah, I basically just agree with Bobby on this. I think that state governments should be the ones having control of these social issues, such as abortion and gay marriage. I think, we've talked about abortion has been brought up for one. One of the reasons I think Roe versus Wade should be overturned is because that should be left up to the states. Now, people mistakenly think that, oh, well, now that's going to prohibit abortion. No, I think it should be overturned so that states can have the say in it.
It's an interesting point with the Supreme Court and 200 years of judicial review. It makes the court want to harmonize different state laws when there's a pressing issue into a single national standard. They've done that forever, and I think with abortion that will continue to be that way. But that's just a side point. Education was brought up. We've had a lot of discussion about education over the last few years, where there's no child left behind, but let me bring up something. Our students in the United States aren't doing too well in terms of international standards, particularly on math and science, although someone did say once that if you want to have kids have high math and science scores, just go to the Midwest and go north. And people, for some reason, do well. For whatever reason, we can get into that. What's the problem? What's the problem? Is it a cultural problem? Is it, obviously, people suddenly don't become dumber or anything else. What's the problem? Why are our students falling behind some of the standards in other countries in the world? I mean, we're not way behind. We're in the middle of the pack or slightly below the middle of the pack. What's going on?
I wish there was a solution, but perhaps it's the reality that America's not number one at this. And I know it's scary to think about, but perhaps it's a harsh reality that we're not always going to be number one in everything. But how do we solve that problem? It's by addressing the issue. The fact that math and science are falling behind it means that we have to encourage teachers who have those degrees to do that, to teach that in our K-12 education systems by encouraging them to stay in that field, and not encouraging them to go out into the private sector or even go into the university. Now, there's nothing wrong with university professors, but more often than not, when we're here, we have a basic understanding of the simple solutions. We understand basic math, we understand basic science, and we kind of have a general idea of what's supposed to happen with them. But if we can encourage our K-12 education to expand so that we have highly qualified math teachers, highly qualified science teachers who understand how to reach out to different types of students in different teaching perspectives, all of a sudden we're able to compete more effectively. Other countries may be succeeding ahead because they may not have a 3-month break in the middle of summer. I love summer vacation. I don't want it to go away. But perhaps that's why other countries, such as Germany, China, and those type of places, they don't have 3 months off. They continue to have school almost all year round, so they don't forget things as much. But we continue to go further ahead in other areas, so perhaps it's a harsh reality that we won't necessarily be number one ever again in understanding math and science, but we can at least address the issue and encourage our students and our educators who are involved in those areas to go back into K-12.
Well, I think there's a number of factors that come into play which have caused our education system to be where it's at. I think one of the biggest issues is how it's organized. I think back to the question before, I think the state should have more of a say in how to run our education systems rather than having the federal government solve the problem. There needs to be more accountability in schools. No Child Left Behind attempted to address that problem, but I think it's failed miserably and the whole plan should be completely scratched because it's not working. Yes, schools need to be held accountable, but it shouldn't be, students should not be penalized after the state decreases funds for these failing schools. This only makes the situation worse. I think as an alternative, we should have school vouchers so that parents have more choice deciding where their children go to school. And that, in a way, can address the accountability issue.
Let's hear from our independents here.
First off, No Child Left Behind, that was put through by your party, but we know that didn't work. We don't even have to talk about that. You brought up the point of voucher in charter schools. This idea that letting the free market control education is crazy. Do you think some kid from South Central LA is going to get into the most elite schools? It doesn't work for the well-off and the well-connected. Education is something that if one person fails, we all fail. This is not the free market and, oh, well, if this company fails, they'll go under. It's okay for the market. We have to look at education as all or one, and if we don't, and start letting people have coupons to go to school wherever they want, what does that say about our education? And second off, to go back over here and say we might not be the best, we're the United States of America. We have the greatest infrastructure in the world. We can do anything we put our minds to.
Okay, before Bobby jumps into it, I'll give you some more fuel so you guys can go. And it'll be Bobby. Are you ready to go, Mr. Sawyer?
Can I just say something quick here? Although I respect your opinion, I must disagree on the voucher program. Let me give you an example. In my high school, I grew up in a private Christian